The Pixel People Pod. Snap, 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 it's on. Rewind the future fraud.
I don't care if it is the White House calling. Tell them we're recording the podcast. Oh, sorry, we're live. I'm sorry. Hey, it's us. It's the Pixel People Pod, live to tape, actually, from the Pixel Underground Studios. It's me, Greg, and say hello, Jan.
Hello, Jan.
It's another episode. We're back, and this is our first time we've ever done this. This is part 2 of last week's episode, recorded separately. So this wasn't a big marathon recording. We did them as separate podcasts, but we broke them into half. So last week's was Top Guns, the highest grossing movies of the 1980s. Part 1, well, welcome to part 2. So this is the big ones today. The big guns, the top 6.
We started with 12 last week. Went through 6. Tonight we'll go through the rest of the 6.
Started from the bottom, now we're here. So anyway, before we get into the movies, we have our segment as usual, Jan's Gnarly News.
Here we go. Jan's Gnarly News. Jan's Gnarly News.
Hit us with that news, Jan.
Today being November 27th, 1980, The Bosom Buddies premiered on ABC. Did you watch that one?
I watched it as a kid, yeah.
I remember watching that one.
Peter Scolari was, of course, later in Newhart.
Right.
So I remembered him from that show when he got on Newhart.
He was a good character in both shows.
Yeah.
November 27th, 1980, the 9th and final season of The Waltons premiered on CBS. It also happened to be their 200th episode. NBC picked it up after that for 3 made-for-TV movies.
I saw a family friend had that on a couple weeks ago when I was over at their house. And it made me think, I wouldn't mind going back and watching The Waltons. I haven't watched The Waltons since the 80s.
I would love to rewatch that series.
We'll have to do that.
All 200 episodes.
Wow, okay.
November 27th, 1981, Don't You Want Me by Human League was released off of their 3rd studio album, Dare.
What were you doing, Jan, back when that song came
In
out?
1981?
Yeah. Were you working as a waitress in a cocktail bar?
I was not.
So that was not true?
I was 9 years old.
I like that song. That's a good song. That's a good 80s song.
The band's best known and most commercially successful song.
Oh, yeah, I'm sure. Yeah.
It sold over 1,560,000 copies.
Pretty good for a song.
November 27th, 1981, Just Before Dawn was released.
Just Before Dawn.
And I know you didn't watch that
No.
one. Scary movie.
No idea what that is. What is it? Sounds like a zombie
I need
movie or
to
something.
really
I don't
get you into watching scary
I
movies.
just didn't. I watch comedies. You get me in stuff, I'll make you suffer through the 80s comedies that I like.
I watched some of those as well.
Yeah.
I just happened to watch scary movies too. November 27th, 1981, the horror thriller anthology series Dark Room aired on ABC.
Don't know that one.
I do not
Never
remember
heard of
that one.
I heard Dark Shadows, but I never heard of Dark Room. So
But I'm glad I didn't watch that one
Yeah.
because being in commercial graphics and having to go into a dark room,
yeah.
doing photography classes a lot in college, I would have probably remembered that. And
Was that what it was about?
I would assume it was.
Oh.
That's what first came to my mind, but
Okay, we'll
it
have
could
to
have
look
been
it
talking
up.
about a room that was dark.
Yeah, I'll have to look it up. Put the trailer up on the Facebook page.
November 27th, 1982, the album Speak of the Devil was released
The live album.
as a live album by Ozzy.
Yeah.
I don't remember this one as well. And
Well-
tell them why I don't.
I don't know why.
Because I don't usually listen to live
'cause
albums.
Jan and I are polar opposites when it comes to music. I would prefer live when I'm hearing songs. I like hearing the bands play live, and she likes the album cuts. That album, I know a lot about that album because Brad Gillis from Night Ranger is playing guitar on that, because that was recorded literally months after Randy Rose died.
Mm-hmm.
He came in they had a guy, I think his last name was Torme, played for 4 shows after Randy died, but he just was not fitting in. And they called Brad Gillis Night Ranger. Wasn't quite big yet. I don't think they'd been signed yet. And somebody spoke well of him, and it's like, can you come in and play guitar? He's like, yeah. And he flew in and just sit in his hotel room for 2 days and learned all the songs. And then within a week was recording that album. And he did a good, I've heard that. It's out of print. You can't get it now. But I found it on YouTube and listened to it, and he shreds on it. He's good. It's amazing how those guys can just step in and fill in.
The whole entire album was only Black Sabbath covers.
You know why that album came out? I'm going to get this wrong. I've got a 50-50 chance of getting this right. He put that out because Black Sabbath put out a live album with Dio, and he put that out to counter that, or vice versa. I can't remember which one it was, but either he put that out, and then Black Sabbath I'm pretty sure, though, knowing how Sharon Osbourne and her dad were back then, they put that out to counteract the Black Sabbath live album with Dio.
I wouldn't doubt it.
And but they should put, now that he's gone, maybe they'll do it. They should put that album back out. I would love to hear that like cleaned up, and I've heard it on YouTube and stuff, and it's great. And Brad Gillis, he plays to this day when Night Ranger tours. They play Crazy Train every show.
November 27th, 1983, the infamous stampede over Cabbage Patch Dolls took place.
I've seen footage of a lot of those. Those people are crazy. What do you mean the there was one specific one?
Yeah, it was at a certain
Maybe that's the one I've seen then.
store.
The people just going nuts grabbing. You know, I spoke about this on one of the earlier podcasts when we was talking about toys and stuff from I think you weren't on that one, but
The craze was nationwide.
Yes.
But this actual stampede was in one certain store.
yeah. But I don't think you were on this particular episode, but I talked about Cabbage Patch Dolls. I think Chris and Janlin were on that one. And I talked about even in the early 90s when I went to go work at Rose's, the first Thanksgiving or something, I worked there, they had put out a new Cabbage Patch. This is the early 90s, like 90-91. Had put another Cabbage Patch doll out, and people went crazy then. This was the early 90s, and people were still knocking people over, and just, they wiped them out. I mean, that phase, that craze lasted a while.
Xavier Roberts knew he had a good thing.
That's the guy that created them.
Yes.
Yeah.
His signature is on the butt.
Oh,
of every
that's
Cabbage
right.
Patch doll.
That's right. Did we watch that on something?
No, I've just always known that.
Yeah, I guess you're the one that told me that. So
November 27th, 1984, Foreigner released the single I Want to Know What Love Is.
I still like that. I know it's cheesy and it's synth pop and it's, but I love that song. I can't turn that song off when it comes on.
November 27th, 1985, Mr. Mister released their album Welcome to the Real World. Did you have that one?
No, I wasn't a Mr. fan.
November 27th, 1985, Rocky IV was released in theaters.
Oh, epic movie. That's my favorite Rocky. It's not the best Rocky, but it's my favorite. I mean, there's just that movie for its time was like, that was the epic. For the time it came out, Reagan was president, we were Cold War with Russia, everybody was pro-American, which nobody can believe that now. But, that movie stood out. And the greatest soundtrack to any movie, I'll argue to this day. That soundtrack, I still listen to it.
I don't know, the Top Gun soundtrack might beat it.
Nope, sorry. Nope, sorry. Can't touch it. And I had that sound, probably the only soundtrack I ever bought to a movie was that on cassette. And I would play it as much as I played any Van Halen cassette, anything back then. I played that Rocky IV soundtrack. It was great. That movie was great. I want to watch it now.
Put it on our list.
Yeah.
November 27th, 1986, Bon Jovi got their first #1 hit in the U.S. with their song, You Give Love a Bad Name.
Yep. They were big. I remember when the Bon Jovi craze hit.
It was the lead single off their multi-platinum selling third album, Slippery When Wet.
They had good songs, but him being the pretty boy really helped push them over the top.
Yep. November 27th, 1987, Greg, you're going to love this one.
Okay.
Wasp released their live album, Live in the Raw.
Yep, I listen to that quite a bit. I love Wasp. Jan doesn't appreciate them as much as I do. Me and the Podfather Chris went and saw them like a year or two ago in Charlotte, and we were definitely a lot more men than were women at that show, but it was good. It amazes me that Blackie Lawless is this big Christian now and doesn't even do a couple of songs because of the words in them. When in the 80s, I can remember them bringing a guy to our church talking to the youth about the devil and rock music, and Wasp was one of the main ones. And I think he said that the Wasp stood for we are Satan's people, or we are sexual. He said it was we are Satan's people. I remember because it's W-A-S. But I've heard Blackie Lawless asked about that, and he goes, we named the band Wasp, but I just thought it'd be cooler to put the periods between it. It made it look like way cooler. And he goes, if it's got to stand for something, let it stand for we are sexual perverts, but it doesn't stand for we are Satan's people.
This album is said to be from their raw and raunchy era.
Yeah. The funny thing is, there's nothing raw about it. It's pretty much 95% studio recording with audience crowd noise pumped over it. It's nothing. It was not recorded in front of live.
It had the classics on it, like "I Want to Be Somebody," "Wild Child," "Blind in Texas."
Among others, you can't say on this podcast because we keeps it clean on this one.
November 27th, 1987, Walt Disney World Celebrity Circus aired on TV. It was hosted by Tony Randall. It featured stars like Tim Conway, Kim Fields, Jim Varney, Malcolm Jamal Warner.
You have me at Tim Conway.
I know. Yeah. I do not remember this.
I don't either.
But I would love to go back and watch it
because
I'm sure. Tim Conway was gold.
When we're done tonight, we'll pull it up on YouTube because I guarantee you it's on there.
And it combined circus fun with Disney magic.
Now that you say the circus stuff, I think I remember seeing that when it came out. It's them running a circus, right? Like a celebrity, like.
From what I gathered, yes.
I kind of remember that. I kind of think that was more than a one-time thing. Very reminiscent of the celebrity. What was the ones they used to do? The celebrity battle of the network stars.
Yes.
You know that was great when you was a kid. Watched. We were CBS family, so stick it to ABC. You know.
Everybody loves a good classic battle.
Yeah.
November 27th, 1987, one of the best movies ever made was made. Planes, Trains, and Automobiles.
Yep, good movie. We just watched it last Thanksgiving.
American comedy written, produced, and directed by John Hughes.
The guy who wrote and directed every comedy almost in the 80s.
Starred Steve Martin.
Yeah.
And Neil Page.
And
John Candy.
Yeah. I'm going to leave him hanging there. That's another one. We've got to watch that. There's a
John Candy was a shower curtain ring salesman. So at one of my old offices, we used to have a shower curtain ring division that actually had a sign over a door and everything.
Yeah. There's a John Candy documentary out that came out like a month or so ago that we need to watch. And I've heard such good stuff about it. And it's a tragedy we lost him so young.
I know.
I almost don't want to watch it because I'm afraid it's going to make me really sad. Because he's one of those celebrities I think everybody would want to bring back.
Mm-hmm.
You know, he would be high on that list. If you could bring one back from the dead, he would probably be high on that list.
John Candy and Steve Martin in that movie together was a really good combination.
Yep.
November 27th, 1987, Back for the Attack, the fourth studio album by Dokken, was released.
I love Dokken.
November 27th, 1988, Love Never Dies was released. This is the sixth single from Belinda Carlisle's second solo album, Heaven on Earth.
Don't know if I know that song. Do you know that one?
No. Maybe if I heard it, it would refresh my memory. But
by the time you get to did you say sixth single?
Yep.
By the time you get to that many, it's kind of losing its luster, you know.
Tell that to Michael Jackson.
Yeah, Thriller. And look, it's only spent like 8 weeks on the charts, so...
November 27th, 1989, the world's first living liver transplant took place in Chicago.
It was 89?
1989.
Wow, they've come a long way since then.
They have. It was at the University of Chicago Medical Center. They actually called it Alyssa's transplant.
Did it say how long she lived with it?
No, I didn't look that up. I didn't really want to know the bad side of it. Yeah. But her mother, Teresa Smith, gave a portion of her liver. She was 29. And she gave a portion of her liver to her 21-month-old daughter, Alyssa, I'm assuming.
Yeah, have to start somewhere. That's pretty cool.
Number one song, November 27th, 1982, was Truly by Lionel Richie. My sister had a couple of his albums, so I knew all of his songs. Not because I listened to it, but because she listened to it constantly.
What was it, American Idol he was on that sort of brought him back the last 10, 15 years?
Like one of those shows.
He faded into oblivion for a long time, but he's been brought back to the forefront with one of those celebrity shows.
All right. Celebrity birthday today. Born November 27th, 1984. Avril Lavigne.
Who? Well, yeah. Not a fan of Avril Lavigne, but, I mean, a lot of people are, so...
My daughters loved her.
Okay. She's not my generation, so I'll not say a bad thing.
And there you have Jan's Gnarly News.
Oh, gnarly!
All right, Jan, thank you for that. That brings us to the meat and potatoes of this episode right here. The final 6, starting at number 6. And we split these up 6 each. Just so happened that the ones that I chose, which are the ones that I know the most about, were 5 out of the top 6. So This is a Greg Heavy episode. I'm not as good a researcher as Jen is, so I didn't get quite as much information on my stuff. I'll do like I've done in life. People that know me, I got just the basics. I'm going to wing the rest of it off stuff.
Well, you have the movies memorized.
Yeah,
so
yeah,
you
all
don't
these
have to research like
Yeah,
I
I
do.
have good stories about most all these movies.
Even
So,
though I had watched all my movies several times,
I have one of
I
these.
still had to look them
One
up.
of these movies is a story about me almost dying on the way to seeing it that I'll tell. That brings us to number 6. So number 6 on the box office in the 80s, highest grossing movie, was Episode 6, Return of the Jedi, Star Wars. That movie was the first Star Wars movie I actually got to see in a theater. It was 1983, and I was 11 years old, and I demanded for my birthday, I want to see that movie. So Mom and Dad took me. My dad, people that know my dad now, he's a softie and all that stuff, but like most 80-year-olds are. But back then, my dad was like, he didn't go for any foolish crap. And like, I watched my wrestling. That's all fake, And then Star Wars, what is this garbage? He's a typical 80s dad. He wasn't like that with my music, though. They let me listen to whatever I want to listen to with music, but he just rolled his eyes at most of the TV and movies I liked. But Star Wars, they had to give in and take me to see that for my birthday.
My
And-
parents were good at taking us to the drive-in to see movies.
Yeah. I only got to do
Because
that
with 4
once.
kids, you had to go the cheap route.
So you saw a lot of drive-ins?
Yeah, we saw quite a few.
I saw one drive-in movie. It was Star Trek, The Search for Spock, at the Kings Mountain Drive-In. Return of the Jedi. It's the last of the original Star Wars trilogy, which it's movie number 6, which threw off a lot of people, I guess, probably still does. Like, why is that? That was 82, 83, and it's number 6. Yeah, well, Lucas had a plan, and it came to fruition. Filming for this movie began on January 11th, 1982, and it lasted until May 20th. It's amazing to me, looking through these movies, at how much they got accomplished in filming in such, like, 2 or 3 months they could film all this stuff. But
Well, look at all the experience they had in movie making.
I guess, it hit theaters on May 25th, 1983, so they had a year to put all the effects together. They shot the movie, but then they had a year to put it together. That's where these movies, like back then, all the effects and all the stuff you had to put in, and back then it was blue screen, and all the stuff you had to do, that was a lot of work, and those guys, I can't imagine. The scope of some of these movies back then, now it's a lot of computer, and, they have whole crews that just work on computers and put effects, but when you look back at some of those Star Wars movies and how Lucas created a whole, effect stuff, he created most of these, and it's amazing to see what he did. But
He had a great special effects team working with him.
Well, he had a great mind too. So on opening day, it made $6.2 million, and it beat out of all movies Star Trek II: The Wrath of Khan to have the highest one-day gross.
Khan!
Yeah. So it made $23 million its opening weekend and grossed a record $45.3 million its opening week. Think about that, $45 million. That is huge, because even now you have some of those movies, the big movies, that make $100 million on the weekend, but that was $43 million 40 years ago. So it only opened in 1,002 theaters, and now like every movie is open at like 3,600 theaters. It's $22,973 per theater average, adjusted for inflation, would be the record until Avengers Endgame in 2019. So when it finished its run, which like all those movies back then lasted almost an entire year in the theater, its worldwide gross for that year was $375 million. Which again, you think of now like that. A lot of movies do that, but back then, ticket prices were not that high, and just for inflation, that movie is $1 billion movie now. I have a lot of good memories about that movie. I mean, when I was a kid, the Star Wars trilogy, the whole Star Wars saga, suffers from my generation growing up and staying Star Wars fans, because there's a lot of people of our age that grew up as Star Wars fans and can't look at it now, the new ones, through their eyes as a child. They look at it as an adult. Like when Jar Jar Binks, when he was in that. Yeah, he was annoying, but I liked Jar Jar. He was funny.
I liked him too.
I remember when Jedi came out, some people, it got knocked by critics and people because they had the Ewoks and stuff, and the Ewoks are great. I love the Ewoks.
And look how much merchandise they sold.
Yeah, it's a movie for kids, and it turned into this, the whole thing. It's like a religion now, but some of the people that diss the Star Wars movies now as an adult that think, oh, Disney's ruined them, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, they've made some missteps, but come on, look at it through your young eyes. And look at what it became, and enjoy it that we still have it. And it's still, putting out new stuff. Yeah, Jen's not the Star Wars fan that I am, but I've got her watching some. Showed her the first Phantom Menace. I'm getting her into the prequels. Well, we're going to skip Attack of the Clones, but, you know. But anyway, you know, like I say, I can go on and on about that movie, but I won't. But it's just so good. And, you know, like my buddy Doug, one of the biggest Star Wars fans ever,
he is a huge Star
Yeah.
Wars. He has half of a
Yes.
house devoted to Star Wars.
Yes, and I love it. The child Greg just stands in there, just like the child Doug probably when he looks at it, it's like, this is what I wanted as a kid. So, to get off that, we'll get to number 5, which is another one of mine. Of course, I'll probably say something that's going to rile up some people when I get into this, but number 5 was Back to the Future, 1985. I've said this to Jan, and like I say, I might irk some people, but some days I think the Back to the Future trilogy is better than the original Star Wars trilogy. They're at least
How dare you?
they're at least on the same level field. I mean, there's Back to the Future is a bigger part of the 80s to me as Star Wars was. When you hear that music hit from Back to the Future, it just gets me excited. I could sit and watch those movies every day and never grow tired of them. Yeah, that's the film that started it all as far as that trilogy. Filming began on November 26, 1984, and it ran until April 26, 1985, with a $14 million budget. So think about that. They filmed that entire movie on a $14 million budget. You can't do
Great Scott.
You can't do a cheap rom-com now for $14 million. Originally, here's what people don't realize, a lot of people don't realize, was Michael J. Fox was not Marty when they started filming. It was Eric Stoltz. And if you go on YouTube, this is something, if you've never seen this, I implore you to go to YouTube and type in Back to the Future Eric Stoltz, because they filmed a lot of that movie with Eric Stoltz before they said, wait a minute, this isn't working. And they went and begged and gave all kind of concessions to get Michael J. Fox to come do it. He had the number one TV show at Family Ties at that time, so he was big, and they, you know, they would work around his schedule because they really wanted him in this movie. So, but they had to go back and reshoot like a big chunk of the movie with him in it. To the point where they were so much up against time that while they were trying to get him in there and get rid of Stoltz, they would film whole scenes with just Doc Brown. Like he's talking to Marty, and Marty is not there. They don't even have a Marty yet. And then they would go back and film the other side of that scene later on with Michael J. Fox. That's how much they were up against the wall. His first day shooting was January 15th, so think about that. They started filming on November 26th, and almost 2 months later they bring in him. So that's how much they had filmed Eric Stoltz. And it's really weird when you look at it, too, because Eric Stoltz and Michael J. Fox look a lot alike. You can see...
But total different acting styles.
Oh, yeah. He was a method actor, and he was not cutting it. He's not made for a movie like that.
He was better acting with Cher.
Yeah, in Mask. Yeah. That was a big problem, was his method acting and stuff. He was taking it too serious, and it would have killed that franchise if they kept him in it. But it still is weird if you watch some of the stills. If you go and look at pictures of Eric Stoltz Back to the Future, you have to take a double take sometimes. You're like, wait a minute, no, that's not Michael. It just looks a lot like him. But I gotta imagine him thinking about that years later. Maybe I should have not, maybe I should have like rolled with it and not been the method actor for this character. And maybe I could have been in the trilogy and been beloved like Michael J. Fox was in that. But wasn't to be. So the movie was released to theaters on July 3rd, 1985, and it earned $11.3 million during its inaugural weekend, beating out, this is something I found out researching this, it beat out Clint Eastwood's Pale Rider movie for number 1.
I don't remember that one.
Yeah, it's one of his westerns. It's good, but there's another Clint Eastwood thing coming up later on that I learned it really shocked me, and we'll get to it, but by October, it was over $155 million. By the end of the year, worldwide, it had made $381 million, making it the number one movie for 1985. And, we could go on about that again. We talked about some of it last night with Back to the Future 2, but, that's just such a good trilogy. All those movies hold up to this day. The effects hold up. The story holds up. And Zemeckis and everybody involved in those movies has said, we will never touch that. You will never see another one. We're not going to put 40 years later a spin-off. We're not going to do it. And I know that the Cobra Kai guys that run that show and wrote Cobra Kai have talked to them. We have an idea for a Cobra Kai sort of spin-off, but they said no. And I kind of like that. Don't mess with this one.
Would 12-year-old Greg have ever thought that he would be showing this movie to 3 of his grandkids?
No. But I'm glad I did. They liked it. They've seen 1 and 2, just got to show them 3. But, It's good that a lot of the stuff that we loved as kids will hold up to this day for future generations to watch. So
It says a lot about a movie.
yes, it does. That's enough on Back to the Future. That could be a whole podcast on its own. But let's get to number 4 on the list, and this is the one where I almost died. So number 4, Batman, 1989. I'll read off some of the stats and stuff, and then I'll give some stories about it. Filming began on October 10th, 1988, and it ran through February 14th, 1989. And so when they cast Michael Keaton, it just, to put it bluntly, pissed off the comic book people. And I remember that. And I remember even me thinking, even though the only Batman I really knew was Adam West and the goofy, but I loved Michael Keaton as a comedy actor. And when they said he's going to be Batman, I was like, that makes no sense. I wasn't mad about it like the comic book people were, but, he was not Batman. He's short and funny.
Keaton is by far my favorite Batman.
Yeah, he's everybody in our generation's favorite Batman. So, now I heard a thing too, by the way, to spin this around. When people try to talk about, people bag on Christian Bale's Batman because of the voice he put in it. But I heard somebody put the best spin on this as far as, because Christian Bale, his Batman movies, we got to watch those other ones. I've showed her the first one. They are great. But Christian Bale is the perfect Bruce Wayne. He's the best Bruce Wayne. As the playboy, the rich kid, he owns that. Michael Keaton's the best Batman. That's the best way to put it, and I agree. But anyway, some of the A-listers that they wanted to put in there before him, they were talking about were Mel Gibson, Kevin Costner, Charlie Sheen, even Harrison Ford, and here's the last one, which goes back to on our last week's episode. Tom Selleck was also considered to be Batman. So I think he was considered to be everything in the 80s. Tom Selleck was,
Charlie Sheen.
Yeah. He was big back then, Yeah. I don't think any of them could have. Harrison Ford, maybe, but because he was so big in action, it would have been a big movie with him, but I don't think he'd been as enduring as Batman as Keaton was. Keaton's back the last couple of years playing the character again. So the movie made $2.2 million in previews on June 22nd of 1989, and then when it hit the full theaters in 2,194 theaters, it grossed $40.49 million during its opening weekend, beating out Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade, which will be coming up here. It set the weekend gross record earlier that year. Crusade did, with $37 million. When that movie was over, it had a worldwide total of $411 million. It was the highest. This is funny now when you think about Marvel and DC movies. Batman '89 was the highest grossing superhero film of all time until Spider-Man in 2002 with Tobey Maguire.
Right. That's a very good Spider-Man movie.
That I remember when Batman came out, my boss, I worked at Subby's in high school. He went and saw it on the preview. I think it was showing earlier on the Thursday here. And he saw it, and he came in and told me, he gave it 2 thumbs up. He was explaining to me they did such a good job of making you believe a guy could be this Batman. So he said you could see how they explained how his gadgets worked and all this stuff, and it wasn't cheesy like the Adam West. And he just went on and on about how great that movie was. So, of course, I was going to go see it. And plus, let's not forget, the Batman soundtrack was killer with Prince.
Yes.
I know some people dog on it now, but sorry, that was everybody had that CD. So, me and my friend Paul went to see it on a Friday night. I think it was for his birthday. We were going to Hickory to see it. We were in my Volkswagen Bug. And I had a loud radio in my Volkswagen.
No,
So I'm deaf now. So we are on the way to the theater, and we're 5-6 miles from the house, and there's a long straightaway before you get to Ban Oak Elementary School, where I went to school, and there's a road you turn off. So the car in front of me decided I'm going to turn off to the left right here. I'm sitting behind that car waiting for them to make the turn while cars are coming up the lane. With the music blasting, my Volkswagen had a sunroof in it. We had the sunroof open, wind is down, music blasting. And we hear something, and it's like a low roar or something. We can't figure out what it is. And I think Paul and I both at the same time sort of look over to the right, and a semi-truck had topped the hill and realized I can't stop. He was going to plow into us and pretty much kill us. I mean, in the Volkswagen Bug, and this guy's probably doing 70.
Yeah, that would have been bad.
So he takes it to the ditch, and all we see next to us is a semi-truck sliding through the grass, through the ditch, full speed, like 40-something miles an hour, like just dirt, dust, you hear the noise, everything. And that car turned, and I just floored it, and we both were like freaking. And I mean, we were that close. It would have killed us. That's how fast that guy was going. And we talk about that to this day. Anytime Batman pops up, or Paul will talk about Batman or something, remember when we almost died that night going to see Batman? But it was worth it because that movie was great. It was. The casting was perfect in that movie. It was believable. Jack Nicholson, how good was he as the Joker? I mean, come on. He made that movie. Him and Keaton were perfect. So that movie, we have a Batman symbol, a light up symbol here in the Pixel Underground, and I'll post a picture of it. That is in here because of that movie. It's the 80s tie-in. We had to put that light up Batman symbol down here. That's how big that movie was. I don't know how much more I can talk about the Batman movie. It's just, if you haven't seen it, you've got to go see that movie. It's just perfect. So I think it's still in the top 5 greatest comic book movies ever made. You know, along with the original Iron Man and a couple other ones. But you can put all the effects, all the Marvel stuff you want out there now. That movie still holds up 35, 36 years later.
It's my favorite Batman movie by far.
Yeah. And we watched it, like a year or so ago?
Yes.
And it holds up. We watched it with Paul. Now think about it. Yeah, Paul was over here and we watched it. I think we talked about that night about us almost dying.
And celebrated y'all not dying.
Yeah. So that brings me to number 3 on the list, which is Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade, 1989 again. That movie, if you think about that year, 89, had the final, up to that point, Indiana Jones movie, had Batman. That was a big year for the box office. As we talked about last week, this was the true sequel to Raiders of the Lost Ark, since Temple of Doom was a prequel. But they started filming this movie on May 16th, 1988, and ended September 16th, 1988. So it took a while to film. The budget for the film was $48 million. So think about that compared to Back to the Future, $14 million in 85, and by 89 they were at $48 million for Indiana Jones. So this movie was set in 1938, 2 years after Raiders of the Lost Ark. And this one showed a young Indiana Jones who was portrayed by River Phoenix in the beginning of it. You know, that ties into later on. The whole movie is him, and he gets with his father, Sean Connery, and they're looking for the Holy Grail. And they should just brought in the Monty Python guys, and they could have found it pretty fast. But, you know. So this film was released to the theaters May 24th, 1989. And during the 4-day Memorial Weekend, it grossed $37 million. This is something I found really kind of funny. This was in the write-up I read about it. The film was boosted by high ticket prices in some venues, with them charging up to $7 a ticket.
Oh, so, I would love to have a $7 movie ticket.
You have that now at the New State Cinema in Newton.
Support local.
Yeah, they keep prices down over there, you know. But think about that. $7 was high back then. But it really got me thinking, though, and I've said this for years, arguing people when they talk about the price of movies. The price of movies is not that high. It's the food and the concessions is what's high. I paid $15 to sit in like the Dolby Cinema here in town that is an IMAX-sized screen and go for 2 hours and watch some epic movie, you know, at $15. And you pay $300-400, some people do, to sit for an hour and a half and watch a concert somewhere. So it's not that outrageous. The fact that you can still go see movies now for $7 is kind of telling. You know, this really hasn't kept up with inflation as far as ticket prices go. The concessions have, though, boy. You know, you take a couple grandkids out or even your children out to go see a movie and get a bucket of popcorn and drinks, and you're set back $100.
You have to take out a loan.
Yeah, it's crazy. So this movie set the record at the time for the fastest movie to ever hit $100 million at the box office, doing it in just 19 days. That's how popular it was. And I didn't see this in the theater. I saw it years later. I was been my senior in high school, and I mean, Batman, I had to see that. But this one, I didn't just go out and see, but I saw it years later, and I loved it. But I'm trying to remember how big the craze was for Indiana Jones, why that movie was so much bigger than the other two, but I don't remember it then. I guess I was just on the other things, but it was big. This movie, I mean, look, it's number 3 of the 80s. So
you were worried about band.
Yeah, and girls. So its theater run at the end of the year ended with it earning $474 million at the box office, ranking number 3 in the highest grossing movies of the 1980s. Jan, you don't remember that movie that much, do you?
No, I don't.
So I want to watch that with you this weekend, since we watched Rain Man last week. I was going to talk about it this week, but we'll talk about it later on, about my review of Rain Man. So anyway, that movie, I remember, it's just so good. Sean Connery's so great in it. Him and Harrison Ford are perfect as father and son in that movie, and it holds up. That one holds up. Last I saw it a couple years ago, and I was like, yeah, this one, I can see why it was so big, and it's a very good movie. That leads us down to number 2. Number 2 is my personal favorite, and most real Star Wars fans' personal favorite Star Wars movie, which was Episode 5, The Empire Strikes Back. So that, 1980, just barely made it in, 1980. That is the perfect Star Wars movie. It has it all. It's dark. Empire Strikes Back is dark and mean. You know, this is the first movie you got they blew up the Death Star. Woo, yeah, they saved the... This one, no, you don't leave it with a happy ending.
Way to ruin it for me.
Yeah, okay. So... But most hardcore Star Wars fans, especially of our generation, will say, yeah, that's always tops. Every list, that's number one. You can debate on number two, but number one is always going to be Empire Strikes Back. It was actually, I think this is probably why it was directed by Irving Kershner, and Lucas had produced and directed the first one, and Lucas isn't a great director when it comes to directing people. His mind runs so wild and everything else in the movie. I think he doesn't put as much effort in directing the people. Kershner did, and this movie has it's really good as far as the people. So, as I wrote in my notes right here, the definitive Star Wars movie. Filming began March 5th, 1979, and it ended September 24th, 1979. This will tell you what you need to know about how Star Wars was and how Lucas has enough stuff to put all these special stuff in it. When all was said and done, there was approximately 400,000 feet of film. A total of 80 hours of footage he filmed for a 2-hour movie. That's how much he thinks ahead, and which is why we get all these extra stuff added in years later, because he's got 80 hours of footage. The film opened midweek on May 21st, leading into the Memorial Day weekend. It earned $1.3 million opening day, which again you think $1.3 million, but that was 1980. An average of $10,581 per theater. It made a total, and this again goes back to talking about the other ones. This is 1980. It made a total of $6.4 million the entire 4-day Hollywood weekend, making it number one. And this will really get you. 1980. The average movie ticket price in 1980 was $2.69.
Oh my goodness.
That's the nationwide average. So it was cheaper, some places a little higher, but average, $2.69. So it made $6.4 million on $2.69 tickets. So that shows you, how big that movie was. So it remained the number one movie until the 4th week of release. And it was knocked to number 3 on the 4th week by the comedy Holy Moses, which I've never heard of. I was going to look it up and didn't get a chance to.
Holy Moses.
Yeah. And here's the other one that knocked it down to number 3. Bronco Billy, which I love that movie. Clint Eastwood. I love that movie. It's one of his lesser known movies, but it was one that was played on regular television a ton when I was a kid, and I love Bronco Billy. And so I'm kind of glad that Bronco Billy, 1 week was ahead of it. So the next week it moved back to number 1 and stayed there for another 7 weeks when it got knocked out. And this is kind of a travesty. It shouldn't be, but it is. It got knocked out after 7 more weeks by Smokey and the Bandit 2.
Oh.
As much as I love Smokey and the Bandit, Smokey and the Bandit 2 is pure garbage. Smokey and the Bandit 3 is better, and Burt Reynolds is only in it for like 5 seconds. Smokey and the Bandit 2 is garbage. I'm sorry. Let's drag an elephant around it. It should have been knocked out by Smokey and the Bandit. That would have made for a better epic tale. I was looking up the total what it made, and there's been several listings has it grossing between 549 and 550 million. But I think that's with a lot of the re-releases they put in it. So the main sources I found on Box Office Mojo and IMDb show it that it topped out at number 2 in the 80s with $538 million box office, which was big then, it's big now. Adjusted for inflation, it's way over $1 billion now, but maybe $2 billion for all I know. But that movie, if anyone's not a Star Wars fan or really haven't watched them, which if you're listening to this podcast is about growing up in the 80s and our generation. If you haven't watched the Star Wars movies by now, you're never going to watch them, but I implore you, start them, start with episode 4 just to get to episode 5, The Empire Strikes Back. I mean, it ends with them freezing Han and Carbonite and dragging him off.
I would have to watch them in order of the year that they came out.
Yeah, I mean, you will, but, we have a rug where you walk in the Pixar Underground down here of Han Solo frozen in Carbonite, and that's one of the last things in Empire Strikes Back is them freezing him. So that's, that movie, like I say, the greatest one. So I can end my tale right here of giving you countdown to 2 is saying that's the movie to go see, Empire Strikes Back. So this leaves us with number 1. And Jan got the big one.
I did.
So.
The number 1 movie of the entire 80s was E.T. the Extraterrestrial.
Really?
1982. Really? Greg and I just watched this movie a couple weeks ago.
I would not have thought that. I thought it was like a Major League or something like that. No. Yeah.
Of course, we all know it's a science fiction film produced and directed by Steven Spielberg. And Elliot, a little boy, befriends a little friendly extraterrestrial that they call extraterrestrial ET.
By the way, FX, Industrial Light and Magic, George Lucas. There you go.
There you go. ET has been stranded on Earth, so Elliot tries to help him figure out a way to phone home so his spaceship can come back to Earth and pick him back up. It also had Drew Barrymore in it. It's her debut, and she was perfect for her role in this movie.
She was, but when we watched it again the other week,
Oh, she's so sweet
she
in that
is,
movie.
but she's not in it as much as I remember her when I saw it as a kid.
But when she is, it counts.
Right.
The film's concept was based on an imaginary friend that Spielberg created after his parents got divorced.
Did
you
not
know that?
Nope.
Filming took place from September to December 1981 on a budget of $10.5 million.
Wow. When you hear how much this thing made, well, you don't get much better return on your investment than this movie.
The film grossed $793 million.
Yeah, and I looked this up before just to put it in perspective. Besides the fact, say that again.
It grossed $793 million.
Yes. Number 2 in the 80s was Empire Strikes Back at 538. So that one, 200 million more. But if you adjust this movie for inflation and put it up against, these new Avengers movies and Marvel movies are doing too big and, at the box office worldwide. If you take E.T., adjust it for inflation worldwide, it is number 7 of all time with $2.99 billion.
That's a lot
That's
of
how
money.
big, yeah. Number 7 of all time. That's how big this movie was.
It was released in the United States on June 11th, 1982, and it was an instant hit. It surpassed Star Wars to become the highest grossing film of all time, a record that it held for 11 years, until another one of Spielberg's movies bumped it out, which was Jurassic Park in 1993.
Yeah, that was... Jurassic Park was actually... If you look at how this movie hit and how big it was, worldwide and how big it... Jurassic Park, sort of like 10 years later, was the same thing for the 90s. That movie was huge, and it...
Spielberg just has a magic touch.
Yeah.
He knows what he's doing.
And it made this much movie, by the way. I mentioned that to Chris the other day, talking to him, and he said, yeah, I saw that movie 3 times in the theater as a kid. So that's why it made that kind of money. People like him going back and seeing it multiple times in the theater, which my parents would never let me do.
No.
If I'd want to see something twice, they were like, you saw it once, that's enough.
That's enough.
Yeah.
It was regarded as one of the greatest and most influential films ever made. It received 9 nominations at the Academy Awards, winning Best Original Score, Best Visual Effects, Best Sound Editing, in addition to being nominated for Best Picture and Best Director. It won 5 Saturn Awards and 2 Golden Globe Awards.
Do you know what won Best Picture that year?
I do not.
I don't either. I have to look that up. And
I thought you were saying that like you knew.
Next week's episode will tell you what won Best Picture, because obviously it didn't deserve it. I mean, look at how can you take a movie that big
and not win Best Picture?
That took over the world that year, and it doesn't win Best Picture.
Yeah, now I'm curious as to what did win. In 1994, the film was added to the United States National Film Registry at the Library of Congress.
It deserves it.
It holds the record for the most weeks as number 1 at the box office. E.T. held the record for the most weeks as the number 1 film at the box office for over 11 years. It remained in the top spot for 16 weeks.
Oh, wow. That's 4 months.
That's a long time to be number 1.
Yeah. But, like we said last week and this week, back then they let movies sit and brew in the theaters. You could build it, let it build all year. It's not that way now. Nobody ever touched that. That 16 weeks can't be touched. I mean, I don't know if something has since then, but nobody's in the theater, no movie's in the theater long enough to stay.
I know. The iconic scene where E.T. touches Elliot's finger was inspired by Michelangelo's painting, The Creation of Adam. We all know that painting.
Yep.
Which it depicts the hand of God reaching out to touch Adam. It was a symbolic gesture for the connection between humans and the extraterrestrial. It was a nice touch. Before Steven Spielberg reimagined E.T. as a heartwarming tale, it was initially conceived as a horror film called Night Skies.
Yeah, you could very easily turn that movie around and make it a horror film real easy. It's teeters on the edge of darkness, that movie does. It's very creepy and sometimes, so...
He had originally wanted it to be about a group of aliens terrorizing a farm family, but Spielberg ultimately decided to shift and make the story about friendship and love.
Let me add something here. when we're talking about this movie, I'm talking about it from fresh eyes because we watched it 2 weekends ago, and I remembered watching it in the 90s. I went and saw it in the theaters as a kid, and I remember watching it again in like the 90s and not caring that much about it. But when we watched it again the other week, I realized that I don't think I did watch it in the 90s. I think I saw it at the theaters, and that was it. So I watched it with like fresh eyes again, and it was like, oh, I don't remember anything in that movie except for the Reese's Pieces stuff. And it was like seeing that movie for the first time to me. And it was amazing about, how that movie was not what I remembered in my head. It's such a different movie, and I see why it was so big.
After E.T. was released, the sales of Reese's Pieces saw a significant boost, and we have some right here with us.
Did we talk about this the other week on the podcast? Did I bring it up, or did you? About originally it's supposed to be M&M's, and Mara said no. I think I brought,
tell me that.
Mara said no. We don't want our candy in your movie unless you pay us, and he's like, screw it. And then Reese's came to him and said, hey, we got these candies that nobody really likes, and please put them in the movie.
That just shows you how powerful the product placement is in movies.
That's what we're watching it the other week. We had a box in the vending machine down here in the Pixar Underground up until a couple of weeks ago, and we ate them, and then we're watching that movie, and I was like, I wish we had not ate those Reese's Pieces. They would have been so good watching this movie.
I'm going to eat one right now.
Okay, yeah. Little ASMR for people out there.
They're still so good. They're as good as they were in the 80s.
Oh, yeah.
During the audition process, the young cast members had to audition alongside a puppet version of E.T., and that helps Spielberg figure out, if they were going to be able to cut it in his movie or not. I think one of my favorite scenes is the very last scene. Of course, I'm going to give the movie away right here, but the alien spaceship comes back to pick E.T. up. And so Elliot's entire family is there, including his dog, to help say goodbye to E.T.
But not his dad, because his dad's out with his girlfriend in Mexico.
Yep.
So, yes.
He doesn't even like Mexico. Drew Barrymore was awesome in this movie.
She was.
From her screaming when she first meets E.T., just screaming at the top of her lungs, to her dressing up E.T., playing dolls with E.T. She was just very good in this movie. 10 out of 10 stars.
It's up there. I'll give it credit. I forgot all about that movie, and I could see myself watching it again here within a year or so. But it is creepy. It's very dark when he's, people seen it. When he's dying and stuff, and it's very dark. It's darker than I remembered as a kid. You could very easily have, with the whole E.T. creature, if you had just made the music ominous and made him attack, that would be the thing of nightmares, that creature. But instead, it's beloved.
Right. Everybody wanted a little E.T. when this movie came out.
We have 3 or 4 E.T. dolls here in the Pixar Underground.
But that's what all 12 of these movies that we've talked about, that were the 12 biggest movies of the 80s, they all had in common that the cast that was picked for those movies was just perfect.
Yeah, casting's a big deal when it comes to movies. You can ruin a movie with the wrong casting. Well, Back to the Future. That movie you would never saw a second movie if Eric Stoltz had stayed in that movie. Somebody at the casting screwed that one up big time, and luckily they fixed it. But nobody screwed up E.T. Everybody in that movie was, it was very well made. I'm glad we watched it the other week before we talked about this. So I enjoy the talk better now after seeing it again.
I've watched it over the years, a few times with the grandkids.
Yep. Well, there you have it. The 12 highest grossing movies of the 80s. It was fun looking some of these up and realizing just all that, especially the money these things made compared to what movies make now. We get so... inflation's a big deal, so it's when you look back at some of these, you think like that's not that much, but then you think back then that was huge.
We just touched on 12 of the top movies, and those 12 movies helped shape the 80s for us.
Oh yeah. Well, I mean, Back to the Future and Star Wars was like, that was my jam in the 80s. I mean, as far as movies go, that was it. And then to the lesser extent, Indiana Jones and that. But so yeah, I mean, Star Wars came out in '77, and it's not an '80s movie. But for the record, our Pixar Underground basement here, Jan and I, we were doing it as the '80s basement. But as we've gone and collected items and gone to antique stores, we realized our childhood started in '72. We were born, so we had 8 years of the 70s before we kicked into the 80s, so we're counting, what did we say, 75?
Late 80s,
Yes.
late 70s.
We're counting 75 to 90 for down here in the basement, so that's why there's Star Wars A New Hope up on the wall and stuff. We're counting, the later part of the 70s decade. But look at that. There was 3 trilogies that carried throughout that, Indiana. Before, there wasn't trilogies back then other than like monster movies, and they weren't all tied together. Star Wars, the Indiana Jones trilogy, Back to the Future trilogy, that was all that decade. It just, you can't wait for the next one.
Teen Wolf.
It's 2 of those. Yeah, it's not a trilogy. But yeah, it was really fun growing up in that decade and the movies and stuff, which leads into future episodes. Like I said before, it'll start actually January 1st. We've plotted out the next several episodes, and January 1st will be the first official Pixel Underground movie review, and it'll be an 80s movie. And we'll throw it out there and talk about it, and that's going to happen at least once a month from then on. So you'll get at least 12 episodes next year of us talking about an 80s movie and throwing down and breaking it down. And
if you have a favorite one that you'd like for us to talk about, make sure you comment and let us know.
I'll go ahead and give a spoiler out for January 1st. That one's going to be Trading Places because it takes place with New Year's Eve and New Year's, and it's going to be the perfect one to drop on New Year's Day. Get excited for that one. I think the big thing, the movie review thing we're going to do is talk about it, give some ins and outs of the movie, some trivia, but also look at it from the eyes now versus then and say, could this movie be made now?
Because there are some that would not be able to be made.
If it did, what you would have to change to make it, So, yeah, one of them is going to be eventually Revenge of the Nerds, and it could not be made now the way it was made then. Several of them that I liked, really love comedy movies in the 80s, could not be made now. Not the way they were. So that's going to be fun to tackle next year. But anyway, that'll do it for this episode. Thanks for listening.
Shine on.
The Pixel People Podcast.